Thanks for coming down. We had a very busy weekend this past weekend, being the nice weekend that it was. A lot of house parties, a lot of events going on around town for us to be aware of. So kept our officers hopping. Pardon me. Start off, we had a massive house party out on the 800 block of Queens Avenue, which led to one of our officers being assaulted. So we got a call, or many calls, from residents of the 800 block of Queens of a house in that neighborhood that had a party with an estimated 300 to 400 people. So there was a lot of noise. There was trumpets and drums, guitars, fresh graffiti going up on the outside of the building, on the inside of the building. So our officers arrived. There was 4 of them for a late night, great night task force. When they arrived, they were told that it was a demolition party, that the folks were being evicted, and that the house was being torn down. So we went and tried to issue a bylaw ticket to the tenant, but he was being less than cooperative and provided a false name. So when our officers discovered that, they arrested him for obstruction. And as they were doing that, his girlfriend came up behind one of our reserves and punched him in the shoulder. So she was subsequently arrested for assaulting a police officer as well. So they were both taken back to cells, and we had them both of them were charged with various offenses. The 23-year-old Victoria man was charged for obstruction, and his 23-year-old girlfriend was charged with assaulting a police officer. So neither one of them had any history with the police, but both were arrested, like I said, and were released with promise to appears for July 14th.
What a party.
Yeah, we had to call numerous resources for that. You can imagine, send 4 officers and a couple reserves to deal with 300, 400 people. So a lot of resources, and still with the busy call load we had, it certainly was a strain on what we had going on.
What day and time of night was this?
That was Saturday, and time, I think it was about midnight. Oh, Friday night around midnight. My apologies. All right, adding to our busy weekend was a vehicular assault that occurred on Saturday night around 3 a.m. So we ended up arresting and charging a 27-year-old Colwood man after he drove his vehicle on the sidewalk and ran down a pedestrian. So the man is facing charges of dangerous driving, causing bodily harm, and assault with a weapon. So like I said, it occurred Saturday around 3 a.m. at the intersection of Douglas Street and Johnson Street. The driver of the vehicle had been in some form of argument with a group of males who were here from the Lower Mainland celebrating a stag party. And there was about 10 to 15 of them. The driver went to his vehicle, which was parked on the side of the road, revved his engine, and jumped up on the curb and drove into the group. He struck a 24-year-old Cloverdale man in the leg, and that man subsequently flipped over on the hood of the car and rolled off. He was transported to the hospital in a great deal of pain, but the extent of his injuries were unknown at that time, and they didn't appear to be life-threatening. So we called out our crash team. Our analysts came out and reconstructed the scene, and we also called out our forensic identification services to take photographs. So not only did the driver hit this male, but he did flee. He fled the scene, but was located by our K9 unit just up on View Street at Vancouver. So his vehicle had the damage from going up on the curb and from striking the pedestrian. So he was arrested there, and he was released with a PTA, promised to appear, for his court date of July 14th.
What kind of car was it?
It was a Pontiac Sunfire.
Any idea, roughly how fast he was going when he hit the man?
I don't believe it was very fast, because he had come up on the curb, pretty much where he had parked, and hit them pretty quick. So he didn't get a long run up.
Was the driver tested for alcohol?
There was no indicia to lead us to believe that he was impaired at all, so we didn't give any tests.
So what was he doing out at 3 a.m. on Saturday?
His story was he was coming back from another place, so.
Any idea what the initial argument was between these groups?
No, we tried to find that out. We talked to the witnesses who did provide a lot of detail as to what had happened, how the car came up and it hit. We weren't really lucky in getting a lot of information on what had preceded that.
And is this caller man known to you?
No,
Was he in the car alone?
he was in the car alone, yes.
No, he had a passenger.
Did he have a passenger? Sorry.
Female or do you know male?
A
or
male.
female?
Yeah, I can't remember the age. Say ballpark, 40s or whatever.
So this was early Saturday morning?
Yeah, 3 a.m.
Yeah.
So just after bar closed, right around the second slice area.
So it was on Douglas Street that he ran up on the sidewalk?
Yes.
So you need to say that a guy leaving a bar area at 3 a.m. who does something bizarre, isn't that grounds to say, well, you might be drunk? Or like, you have to see the guy like weaving and...
There has to be there's lots of different things, and we have issues all the time if charges aren't approved because, we didn't smell liquor. We may have lots of other indicia, glassy eyes, a slurry speech, but if we didn't smell liquor on his breath, then we don't have, right? We have to be suspicious and have reasonable suspicion to even give somebody that roadside breath test. And if we have no admissions and we have no smell of alcohol, there's no cans in his car or anything like that, then we don't have a lot to go on. All right, we had a couple of youth out in Fernwood who were using the neighborhood as target practice for their airsoft guns. So several Victoria teens were spoken to after they were shooting their airsoft guns at neighboring properties and cars. We received a call on Saturday, just before 5 p.m., and it was concerning a large amount of airsoft fire coming from the second floor of a building in the 1200 block of Gladstone. So our officers arrived and noticed a hail of pellets coming from what appeared to be an automatic airsoft gun. The pellets were bouncing off cars and buildings, but there was no indication that any people had been hit. The officers determined which building that the fire was coming from and went to speak to the occupants. Once they got there, they encountered numerous teens, none of whom would admit to being the person firing the weapon. But after a brief talk, trying to convince them to have some common sense, one of the youth took partial responsibility, didn't admit firing it at any buildings, but did admit firing it out the window. So our officers felt it necessary at that time to seize the 5 airsoft guns, just to prevent this from continuing. So like I said, 5 were located in the suite, 5 airsoft guns, and they were seized, and they're now in our possession. And the parents of the teens were contacted and made aware of what was going on.
How
You know,
old?
were like the younger teens or older teens?
They were older teens.
Older than 16? kind of
Yeah,
17.
sort of around that age.
And sorry, what's the difference between an airsoft gun and like a pellet gun or BB gun?
An airsoft gun shoots a small plastic bullet or projectile. It doesn't shoot it at such a velocity that it could be considered really a weapon under the definition of the criminal code. But the concern for us is that those airsoft guns look so much like a real handgun. We had it here just last week. We had that, there's a clear airsoft gun that was painted black. And really from you to me away, you would be able to tell that that was a replica.
So they were all in one suite of an apartment?
Yeah, there's lots of friends. They didn't all live there.
Okay.
One of the
One of
youth
them
did.
did?
Yep.
How big, what kind of story apartment, how tall?
2, I believe. Yeah.
Any damage to the cars or building?
No, we checked around the area. They don't typically fire unless they're modified at a high enough speed to make any damage, any dents to the metal or anything like that. And thankfully, we didn't receive any reports of anybody else actually being hit by them. So
But it was neighbors who complained of that happening?
Yes.
Like several calls?
we received 1 call on that.
So it's not a fine or anything like that?
No.
Were they drinking?
We didn't have anything in the report, no indication.
And sorry, what time was this and when?
It was just before 5 o'clock on Saturday. Double check it. Yes. Just hang on a second. Yeah, no problem, sir. Good time for me. That's good timing, thank you.
Okay.
A little water break. So on Sunday evening around 10:30, a local well-known Victoria criminal had his crime spree cut to an abrupt end by a tourist. So a 45-year-old tourist from the Lower Mainland intervened and detained a man after watching him break into a car, and he was able to hold on to him until the police came. There was no apparent struggle in that. The man was walking back from dinner with his wife and watched a man pardon me. The man was walking back from dinner with his wife and watched a man break into a car behind the Empress Hotel. When he walked by, he noticed the man was crouched down low in the car and trying not to be detected. The man approached, confronted him, asked if that was his car, to which he replied no. And that's when the man came out of the car and the tourist detained him. So, upon his arrest, when police arrived, we found him in possession of stolen prescription drugs from an earlier break-in and some stolen property. The suspect's getaway vehicle was a red women's mountain bike, and that had also been reported stolen earlier in the day. So we also believe that he matched the description of a break-in and a suspect from moments earlier. A guest at the Admiral's Hotel at 257 Belleville Street said that someone had tried to break in their suite. They didn't get a good look at him, but had a good clothing description. The man attempted to access the door via an open window, but the residents inside the suite scared him off. Frank Bassarache, Bastereache, made his first court appearance this morning. We don't have the results of that yet. He is very well known to police, and he faces 2 charges of possession of stolen property.
You know his age?
He is 40 years old.
Does he have a residence? Or do you know fixed address?
Don't believe Frank has a residence. And I can call him Frank.
So to support his habit is what I'm guessing?
There may be some of that, yes. Frank, this isn't the only crime spree that Mr. Bassarache has ever been responsible for.
And is it a B&E usually, generally, that's his?
Lots of
he's
theft
thinking
stuff.
big picture?
Yeah, lots of property things.
Oh.
So the earlier break, like you found stolen property from the hotel break-in or from another theft?
From another theft, there was a theft of a suitcase that happened, and that's, where was that one? I don't know where the suitcase came from, but the bike was from Lowe Street.
Zero
Right.
block of Lewis Street.
Lewis, thank you.
Oh.
0 block of Lewis.
And what about the prescription drugs?
That was from the suitcase as well, but I don't know where that came
Oh, I
from.
see. So it wasn't from a pharmacy?
No.
Okay.
But that, for the theft of the suitcase, that was earlier that day.
That was
And so that was, you said 10:30 at night?
10:30 at night.
10:30 Sunday, sorry?
Yeah.
Sunday night. And does he have a court date, or has he appeared?
It was today. He appeared this morning. He was held for morning court, and I don't know the results of what happened yet. All right, continuing on our theme of citizens helping the police. We had two passerbys likely saved the heart attack. Let me try that again. 2 passerbys likely saved a heart attack victim's life. So 2 passing motorists may have saved a man's life on Friday afternoon around 4:30 p.m. They administered first aid to a 70-year-old man who had suffered a heart attack. The man was walking near Blanchard in Caledonia and dropped to the ground in medical distress. So the 2 motorists stopped their cars. They were driving down Blanchard Street, stopped their cars and came to the man's aid. A 33-year-old Saanich man and a 36-year-old Victoria woman. They called police and ambulance, and they also started to perform first aid on the male. So paramedics came on scene and launched in a full-blown CPR, as the man only had a light pulse and was barely breathing by the time they got there. The man was also wearing a medical alert bracelet for a notification of a heart condition. So we're certainly of the opinion that if these two passerbys had not stopped and not shown such caring, it would have seriously hindered his chances of survival. So as you know, the most crucial parts, or the crucial moments of a heart attack are right after, and that's when we need to have that first aid. So the man is stabilized, but he's still in hospital right now in serious condition. So we certainly want to commend those two individuals for their compassion and for stopping and for doing the right thing. And they're going to be considered for commendation at a future recognition ceremony.
Did they stop and give CPR before any paramedics arrived?
First aid, yeah. So I don't know what extent that was that they were helping out. But. And doing a little reporting of my own. I have contacted both the people, and if you want offline, I can get you their contact information. And last one for today. So our VicPD traffic section is going to be partnering with numerous provincial and federal enforcement agencies for the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance Road Check 2011, which is held in Hope, BC this week. So this is an annual event. It's now in its 24th year, and it runs from Monday, June 6th to today for 72 consecutive hours and includes enforcement in Canada, the United States, and in Mexico simultaneously. The goal of this large-scale targeted enforcement is to improve road safety as it pertains to commercial vehicles. So over 100 provincial commercial vehicle safety enforcement officers and other police officers from all over BC will be working tirelessly on this project. So our representation will come with Sergeant Glenn Vermette of the Victoria Police Department. He'll be there, and he'll be providing updates at our Twitter feed on VicPD traffic. So the CVSA Road Check 2011 focuses strongly on partnerships with other agencies. Those agencies include BC's Commercial Vehicle Safety Enforcement Inspectors, Industry Canada, WorkSafe BC, Transport Canada, Canada Food Inspection Agency, BC Forest Safety Council, CN Police, RCMP, and municipal police partners. So these strong partnerships always ensure that this event will continue to be a success.
So where did you say they were going to?
Hope.
So that's where they're doing roadside checks in that area?
Yeah, the goal of that is the three main highways in BC all come together in Hope. So that's where they're going to be. It's a really great training opportunity and learning opportunity for our officers. So for Sergeant Vermette, he gets to go and work with the best of the best in the business and bring that information back to our officers here.
So it's just Glenn Vermette?
Yeah.
So, I didn't realize like like with commercial trucks and stuff, I thought they pull into weigh stations that they require a certain, and that's usually where those kinds of checks are done. So for police then, the goal is just make them aware so if they see something that they might want to pull over a truck.
Yeah,
because it's not normally what they would do, right?
Well, you can imagine that there's only a few weigh scales that are around. I can't even think of any around here. I think there's maybe one up the peninsula, right? And think of the amount of trucks, or even just a pickup truck that's being used as a commercial vehicle for a yard company. So all these vehicles are very governed by a lot of different rules and regulations. And like you said, our officers typically aren't enforcing that. They're not quite aware of all those rules and regulations. So this training with CVSE certainly helps us.
How many do you think they pull over, or do they do reports at the end of it?
Yeah, there'll be a report at the end of it. I probably won't have it this week, but probably next week. Sergeant Vermette will be able to get that. And he might even beat me to the punch and throw it up on Twitter. I don't know.
And what other areas in the States and in?
In Mexico.
Oh.
Yeah, it's going straight across.